Today's subject, which is how your diet affects the brain.
Yes.
And I feel like there's a lot to talk about this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think, I think it's obviously, you've heard the old expression, you are what you eat, right? Mm-hmm. And so is your brain. So, if people talk about their brain, well, okay, let's start with the diet. That's the number one thing to start with.
So what is the brain mostly made up of?
Fat.
So then there we go. So
I mean,
but the right kind of fat.
Really, I mean, if somebody calls you a fathead, okay, thanks, because it's true. I mean, it really is. It's a majority of fats, and a lot of the problem with it is a lot of those fats are like the omega-3s. Now that's the toughie because they just aren't in our diet anymore. The average person just doesn't consume enough, especially like the fatty fish. Think about salmon. Sardines. I mention sardines to people and they're like, they kind of.
I just think of opening a can.
Yeah, they kind of get. But anyhow, I like them.
I have more people say, "Well, my husband eats them, but I just can't."
Yeah, I like them.
I'm like, my husband eats them too, but I don't necessarily like them either.
But and it was walking through the station here one morning, and one of the
anchors.
One of the anchors, it was a female.
It was a she.
And she was eating sardines. I said, now that's the way to go, because that's helping that brain, because that's giving you the omega-3s and giving you protein and everything else too. So,
are sardines and anchovies different?
Yeah, it's a different fish, and you're probably going to get. I mean, you can get omega-3s from anchovies too.
So is it
but
fair?
Those are really fishy.
I was going to say, is it fair if I eat a lot of Caesar salad dressing, I'm getting some anchovy paste?
A little bit.
Not the bad
not
stuff.
enough to brag about.
Yeah.
You're there. Yeah, you're close. Okay. Yeah, it's about getting the right kind of fats. Like I say, the omega-3, the fish are the biggies. They really are, and there's a lot of other nutrients that we need too. But the fats are very, very important to the brain.
So we're not saying go in to the drive-thru and grab some fatty French fries or things like that. We're talking about omega-3, fish oils, things like that. And if you're not getting that in your diet, there are definitely ways to supplement that.
Yeah.
We actually, we have all different kinds of omega-3s. Mm-hmm. And we have found over the years, we have a test called an omega check. And our omega check actually looks to see if you have enough omega-3s in your body. And it actually gives you a risk of low risk, moderate risk, high risk, according to it's Cleveland Heart Institute. It's their test on, they say if you have enough omega-3s, it actually can decrease the chances of dying when you do have a cardiovascular event.
Right.
So that's kind of what the test was looked at. But we very rarely see anyone, I've had a few over the years, that have a normal omega check without supplementing omega-3 because our diet is so deficient.
So if you're taking these omega-3s or these fish oils, so for example, I have taken them in the past, and it's like when you burp, it's like I taste that fish. Do you have those supplements that would eliminate that?
Well, mostly.
Now, occasionally somebody just doesn't digest it very well.
Right.
Okay, because they are a little harder to digest, no doubt about that. So for that reason, a couple of things, and these tricks of the trade, if you will. Put them in the freezer.
Yeah.
Freeze those things.
The supplements?
The supplements, yeah. Just stick them in the freezer, get them really good and cold. When you drop them in, typically before they warm up and start dissolving, they're going to be out of the stomach into the duodenum and jejunum and so on. So they're going to be in the intestines, and you don't get that repeating thing. That's one.
And our omega-3s are distilled to remove all contaminants.
Right.
And so that does help with that fishiness as well. And we use really good sources. And that makes a difference because when you get rancid fish, you have rancid oil. And when you get the cheap omega-3s, you're probably getting rancid oil.
And we strive to keep ours, and we do it in very small batches. So, and occasionally over the years, if you've been around us long enough, okay, we're out of that. And we're waiting on a new shipment to come in because we keep it as clean and as fresh as we possibly can. That's the key.
Because you don't want rancid oil.
Yeah.
So are you compounding this stuff there on site?
No,
not on site.
Oh no.
We compound it here, and we have somebody else make it for us.
That'd be hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense. So what else? We know that the omega-3s, the fish oils. What else could you eat that or supplement your diet with that could help?
Actually, choline is another one that you see. They say absolutely almost everybody you listen to omega-3s and choline.
Those are the two biggies.
And those are the two biggies in order that you have to have for the brain. I mean, the brain has to have them in order to function properly. And choline comes from foods. A lot of the best sources are animal sources. I mean, in eggs. But egg is an animal source, comes from a chicken. Occasionally people think egg is dairy, and I'm like, no, it's not dairy, it is an egg, it's chicken.
It's in the dairy department.
Yeah, it's in the dairy department, but it is actually a chicken. But the yolk, you can't just have the whites, you have to have the yolk, because there's so many nutrients in that yolk.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is like the highest source, and then it gets into all the organ meats, or like the next one. And then you get into like beef and chicken and pork, and all of them have choline. But believe it or not, people don't get enough choline.
No, and you know, eggs, of course, you know, eggs have gotten a bad rap, you know, oh, can't have those things because of the cholesterol. And without cholesterol, your brain is not going to work at all. Okay, think about this. Your brain is like this big supercomputer, right? Okay, what's the one thing we have to have in supercomputers? Insulated wires, right? The cholesterol that we take in and our body makes, and those fats, those are your insulators. So it keeps everything from cross-talking, and therefore the brain can function a little bit better. Without that, you know, and so I think we've kind of gotten ourselves painted into a corner on this cholesterol, you know, blah, blah, blah issue. And I think it's really created a lot of problems because we're seeing an increase, so big of an increase in brain things like Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, and so on.
Right.
Right? I mean, you know, those are the things.
The neurodegenerative diseases.
Yeah, the scary stuff. I mean, you know, stuff that don't come back.
Yeah.
That's the scary stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not all cholesterols are made the same. Like we
No, they're not.
understand that there's the good and there's the bad.
No, actually, we only have one kind of cholesterol.
Oh.
One. Okay, we have one kind of cholesterol. That cholesterol is carried in different things, and those are called lipoproteins. Because if you look at LDL, it stands for low density lipoprotein-C, which has got some cholesterol in it. So you look at an HDL, it's a high density lipoprotein.
Yeah. A little different.
A little different.
Let's dive back into cholesterol. I learned a little something last segment. We were talking about cholesterol, and I've always heard there's good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. It's all the same. The difference is the HDL and the LDL. Mm-hmm. So dive into that a little more.
Well, a low density lipoprotein is the LDL, okay? And it means low density. Notice it's not very dense. Typically, what we always thought, and what we're taught, you know, and now the lipidology is kind of catching up with us, but what we thought was the LDL is taking cholesterol from the liver out to the body so you can use it in the cells and so on. And then the HDL is going out and retrieving stuff that the cells spit out, you know, like, I don't need that, you know, and spits it out. And the HDL picks it up, takes it back to the liver, it's reprocessed into bile salts, so part of the digestive process for emulsifying fats. But the carriers are the difference. It's not, you know, it starts out as a VLDL, then it goes to an IDL, then LDL. That's as it loses triglycerides. That's why triglycerides are such a big, big problem. And
triglycerides are a really big problem if you have them.
Yes.
Because it is probably, I see over the years, a biggest cardiac risk.
It is, well, no,
It is.
even the science is now coming out and saying that.
It is
you know,
a really big cardiac risk.
Yeah.
But
it is.
Yeah.
So, but regardless of this, some people are fine with cholesterol, more of it, less of it. Some people are not. It just
Right.
it really depends on the person.
Well, that's why we look at more factors when somebody does especially our supercardiac panel. It'll actually look at the particles. It looks at whether they're oxidized. It looks at, you know, lipoprotein A. It looks at all the different factors in lipoproteins to see, do you have the bad risk pattern? Mm-hmm. And you know, we could do a whole show on just how to look at that. We might do that a different time. Mm-hmm. But we actually, it does make a big difference.
A huge difference, yeah.
To do extra testing.
Yeah.
You were talking about choline and mentioning how that comes from a lot of animal product, and you can supplement that in your from you know, items in your clinic. But are there ways to get that for folks out there who are vegan? Do you have options there for those individuals?
Well, yeah. If you're vegan, it's going to be tough. Because you got to eat a lot of whatever you eat.
Right, a lot of it.
For instance,
like beans.
Yeah.
You can get choline from beans, but like it takes 16 ounces to get like 80 milligrams of choline, and when you eat one egg, it's like
146.
140 something. Yeah.
146.
So we're talking about it's half the amount of choline, and 16 ounces of beans is a lot.
That's a lot of beans.
That's a pound.
Yeah, and the thing
I mean, like I said, it takes a lot. Yeah.
and when you look at the RDA, and my thoughts on RDA, that's just enough to barely keep you alive.
Yep.
And maybe, perhaps, but the RDA is like 550 milligrams. Okay, if you got 60 and 16 ounces of beans, you have to eat a whole lot of beans.
Yeah.
And there's other foods and beans are probably one of the
Broccoli.
highest.
There's broccoli. There's,
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, you can get it in some of the vegetables, but it's not near as high as any of the animal sources.
Right.
So
Sure.
it is harder to get. But we do sell this CDP choline is the one that we have, which is the brand name Cognizant. And one of the benefits of it, as opposed to regular choline, is it is more absorbable. And there's way more studies on how it's so beneficial to the brain.
Yeah, it's how it's metabolized and what it does once it gets in your body, how it actually interacts with all the other stuff going on in your body, and especially in the brain. And one of the areas in the brain that's so important is the hippocampus. Now, you didn't know you had one, did you? Well, the hippocampus is really important in memory. So if you're having problems remembering things, it's that hippocampus is not kind of up to its par, so we need to do some things for it, and especially like the CDP choline.
And we really do have a lot of people that take the CDP choline that can tell a difference
yeah.
in memory. They're like, when I run out, I can tell. I mean, a lot of the products they can't always tell. That one's one that people say, oh my gosh, when I ran out of it, within a week I could tell that I wasn't remembering as well. So it does make a difference, and choline is just so important.
It really does.
Like I said, omega-3 is just so important to the brain, but I don't see as many people saying they feel the difference in memory when they run out of it.
No.
But the CDP choline, definitely.
Right.
Well, I will say, getting up to the age area where I am, it's the brain fog is really becoming kind of a big deal.
Can be.
Yeah.
In the middle of a conversation, just losing track of.
You're too young for that.
I don't even start. Like, I understand. But what about those individuals who are beginning to experience that, like the brain fog and the forgetfulness, and what they would imagine to be an early stage?
Well, again, we always recommend lab work to make sure there's no underlying problem causing that brain fog. Because there are so many things: high stress hormone, thyroid problems, vitamin D deficiency, B12 deficiency, high sugar. They're calling dementia type 3 diabetes because of the way sugar damages the brain. So again, the one food that's the worst thing for your brain is sugar. So the brain technically needs sugar to work, but your body can make sugar from other things. Just straight sugar and processed sugar is not good for the brain.
Yeah, people don't realize that that the body can actually take proteins and fats and make sugar.
Yeah.
It's called gluconeogenesis, and you look it up. And it's one of those things. It's really kind of neat. So people say, well, you got to eat sugar because your brain has to have sugar. Oh no. Your brain can actually take the stuff that you got, even that fat that you got, pinch for an inch thing. If you pinch an inch, you got a whole lot of stuff stored up there that your body can take and turn it right into sugar and glucose as needed. So you don't have to, the fallacy that we have to eat sugar, that's a fallacy.
I would say one of the most important things for everybody out there on eating for brain health is stop eating packaged processed food.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like we say that on every show probably, but it really is true about the brain, because the chemicals and the things that you're getting in that packaged processed food is so damaging to the brain. So that's one thing. Make sure you get your omega-3s, make sure you get your choline, but make sure you get off of packaged processed food and eat a wide variety of fruits and vegetables and colored things that have all the antioxidants.
Right, and just making sure that, like I say, real food.
Real food.
One of the leading endocrinologists out there that does a lot in this field, Bob Lustig, and great guy, and his big thing is real food.
Yeah.
He's so big on real food because they took a group of kids that were actually diabetic, and they calculated how much fat, how much protein, how much carbohydrate they took in, and they simply took this and how many calories. They took that same group of kids and they said, okay, we're going to take away all the packaged processed food. We're going to give you real food. We're going to give you the same amount of fat. We're going to proteins and carbohydrates and same caloric value, and they got so much better.
Yeah.
Within just a week or two. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, even on the same foods. So that's kind of
Same
amazing.
food.
It's
Yeah.
the chemicals in the food that's really getting to everybody. And so you really need to be, and you need to think about before you eat something what it's going to do to your brain. One of the reasons we decided to do this is make people think before they eat.
Seems to be that packaged processed food is very much the least common denominator for a lot of things.
It is.
Really is.
It is not
It's becoming more so.
What about, and we've talked about sugar, and we've talked about packaged processed foods. What are some things that you want to stay away from?
Well, the artificial sweeteners are probably the #1 thing to stay away from, as far as staying away from something.
Well, that's in everything.
And MSG.
Oh, yeah.
MSG is another one, monosodium glutamate. At that, and there is so much damage to the brain and damage to the neurons. There is, Russell Blaylock is a doctor in Jackson. He has written a lot of books, and he does a lot of blogs and different things like that. And he wrote a book called Excitotoxins, The Taste That Kills. And it goes into detail on how it damages the neurons in the brain.
Right.
And I mean, he goes into detail, so it's really good. It's an old book if you can find it.
Yeah.
But he has a lot of new stuff out too if you go to his blog. But he is real down on what he calls excitotoxins. And MSG and aspartame are two of your big ones.
Yep.
So artificial sweeteners, horrible. MSG flavor enhancer, horrible. Again, get off the chemicals.
And MSG is, I mean, it used to be in a lot more than it's in now.
It's in everything.
It's in everything.
So it still is.
It's still in everything.
It's still in everything.
I can eat at a restaurant, and I can tell by the time in my meal if they have MSG. And we've narrowed where we got about 2 places on the Cold Coast we can go.
That doesn't use it.
That doesn't.
They might
bode
not
well.
know they use it. Now, honestly, a lot of people tell you they don't use it, and they don't think they do, but
Because they're not adding it.
Well, no,
right.
right.
But they use already packaged stuff that has it in it. So it's everywhere, and there's hidden sources, and there's actually, you don't know that it's in there. If you cook at home, you know what you put in it. And also, though, if you cook, you got to look at the sauces you use. Sauces, horrible.
Yeah. Seasonings, anything that's going to enhance that flavor.
Yep, exactly.
Flavor, because that's what MSG is, or is a flavor enhancer and a brain killer, all in one. You got 2 for 1. And so it's something that we really need to stay away from. And like I say, Dr. Blaylock years ago wrote the book, and a friend of ours who was an OBGYN at the time, told us about this book.
Yeah, she's the one that told us about it. That's been a long time, probably the 70s.
God.
80s? I think he wrote it
in the 90s.
Was it 90s?
Early 90s.
Okay, it's a long time ago.
Yeah, long time. That's
Oh,
a long time ago
70s.
now.
I was actually a kid, so I went to 70s.
Long
The
time ago.
90s, a long time. Were the 90s a long time ago?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. All right, we have a viewer question here. What is the best over-the-counter medication for osteoarthritis in the arm?
I would have to say that our Pernimax is probably the best. Because,
Yep.
a lot of people talk about your glucosamine chondroitins and so on. Well, the perna is a shellfish that comes from New Zealand, of all places, called the green-lipped mussel, Perna canaliculus. And it has all 9 different classes of glucosamines, which is really big because we have 9 different classes, not just glucosamine sulfate. So, and it has all your chondroitins and so on, and it has a lot of other antioxidants and blah, blah, blah. And even Clemson University, I think it was in 98, I believe it was 98, did a study and showed it has a big antioxidant and an anti-inflammatory capability. So
Yeah, we use Pernimax is by far what we use the most for osteoarthritis. Yep. As long as you're not allergic to shellfish.
That's the key right there.
Yep.
That's
If you're
key.
allergic to shellfish, you can't do it. And we do have some alternative products. Even our Phyto4 is good, and it is plant-based. So you have to look at. We do find people with shellfish allergies.
Especially here in the South.
Around here, most people know.
Right.
They've at least eaten it and found out that they can't
found
do
out
it.
they got a problem, yeah.
That's right.
It's the most closely related to the oyster. So if you cannot eat oysters, you probably cannot take Perna.
Stay away.
Yeah.
All right, we have another one here. This one's going to be near and dear to our hearts here. Does coffee deplete your vitamins, and what is it good for?
Well, actually, no, it doesn't necessarily deplete your vitamins. Small, it's a kind of real controversial issue. Some research that's been out for quite a while have shown that, too much coffee, too much of anything, even water for God's sakes, can be bad. Coffee in small amounts, some of the research currently, I think within the past year or two, has actually shown that, this stuff's actually beneficial, especially for the cardiovascular stuff.
And the brain.
And the brain. Now, obviously, if you overdo it, again, it's not good. But what it's good for is especially in the brain, is that like lighting you up or mental acuity. Again, too much is not good, but some is very good in
too much coffee increases cortisol, and then
Yes.
cortisol damages everything.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do too much, but just a small. Most of the things that you'll read say about 2 cups a day, and when they're talking about cups, they mean
6
cups,
ounce.
not cups.
Yeah, they're also not talking about a caramel macchiato or a pumpkin spice latte.
Right.
Though now that you start adding all that sugar to it, you definitely not good for you.
Going back
You-
down that sugar
Yep.
train.
You've made your real poison out of that one.
We do black coffee. So actually, that's if you are going to drink coffee, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a snob myself. But pour over. It doesn't matter how you're making it, as
Yep.
long as you're sticking with the pure coffee without
Right.
adding in a lot of additives,
Right.
especially artificial sweeteners.
Yep.
I'm gonna stay away from any of that.
And we tell you that the best coffee is going to be an organic
Right.
coffee, and that's probably one of the best things, simply because they just the chemicals
Some of the chemicals they use.
People say, well, why do you do all this organic stuff? Staying away from those damn chemicals. I mean, what we live in. And a matter of fact, next week we're actually going to talk about
Right.
the toxic soup that we live in and how you can survive it.
Right, we're talking about how you can actually protect yourself against all the toxins in the environment and the food next week.
Yeah,
So
but that's the big thing. But this week, in talking about the coffee, small amounts, great.
Yep.
Too much, not so great. I'm Dr. Fox, and I want to thank you for watching this YouTube video. Be sure and hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell so you'll be notified on any upcoming videos that we have coming up. And thank you again for watching our YouTube videos.